Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, and it's Monday morning. And we're going to talk about one of the biggest surprises of the NFL season, and that is the New York Jets, who are completely and utterly loaded on paper. They just lost yesterday to quite possibly a bottom three team in the NFL, that is the New England Patriots, a division rival. Completely inexcusable, completely unacceptable in my eyes. And when you look at this team, all right, this is a list of top 100 players in the NFL from this offseason's voting. The New York Jets have 6 players who have made the top 100 players in the NFL. If you think about the fact that each team has a list of players, but there are 32 teams in the NFL. Each team on average should have about 3 players in the top 100, 33 times 3, right? 32 times 3. This team has more than double what you would expect. And that is not mentioning Breece Hall, who I think could be argued as at least a top running back in the league, and Davante Adams, who they didn't have at the time this list was out, but now is on the team, and he is ranked at 40 on this list. So this team is loaded. This is not a roster problem. This is not something that a team like the Carolina Panthers and the New England Patriots can chalk up their losses to. We don't have the guys. All right, the New York Jets have the guys, and unfortunately, I think Robert Saleh was made out to be the fall guy in this whole situation. He was fired 2 games ago, and there was maybe a culture shift. There was kind of this promise of a culture shift. They bring in Davante Adams, right? I mean, it is, if we want to make a corny Jets analogy, it's time for takeoff. We've been on the runway for way too long to start this season. It's time to actually get some things going. And so they fire Robert Saleh, and I think that was more of a symbolic thing for this team, because in all actuality, it's not done anything worthwhile. They haven't won a game since he's left. They've lost 2. They've lost to the Steelers and they've lost to the Patriots. 2 teams with arguably very vanilla offensive talent, if any. Teams that have solid defenses, but teams that they were expected to beat. And in some ways, I feel bad for Robert Saleh, because he has to take the responsibility for the team's poor start. What was it at that time? A 2-3 start. He gets fired, and I just don't know if he was the problem at this point in time. So if we talk about yesterday, a 3-point loss to the Patriots, this is a statistic I saw actually at Dan Orlovsky tweet. When teams score 20 points and have no turnovers and allow fewer than 250 yards, they are 750-1. That one loss comes yesterday to the Jets. They are the only team in NFL history since records were taken to score 20 points with no turnovers and to allow, or their defense holds teams to fewer than 250 yards. 750 wins, 1 loss, and that 1 loss was yesterday. So this is what we've seen from the Jets so far. And I think the San Francisco game is excusable. First week on the road against a good team, whatever. Tennessee, you win by 7. You'd like to see a little more there, but a win's a win. We like that. They did beat New England in week 3, and then they lost 4 straight. Denver at home, which was, in my eyes, completely inexcusable. Minnesota could be excused in some respects because of the quality of team Minnesota has, and Buffalo as well. But you fire your head coach, and you get Davante Adams, and you face Pittsburgh, a team who's making a quarterback shift, and you expect them to at least compete in the game. They didn't score a point in the second half. They had 15 points at halftime. They end the game with 15 points. And then New England, kind of the cherry on the poo-poo sundae, if you will. It just completely awful. They now have a 9% chance to make the postseason. I give them a 0% chance. I don't think, given their schedule, which we'll look at in a second, they have what it takes. So if we want to talk about a metaphor here, an analogy, who is in charge here, right? Who is the pilot? Who's in the cockpit on this team? Because we fire Robert Saleh, which kind of gives the illusion that maybe he was responsible for all of this, right? Let's get a new pilot in here, whoever that may be. And my fear is that we have to start looking at Aaron Rodgers. And I know that's not like a hot take. I know that's probably the conversation. I get that quarterbacks get the praise when teams do well, and maybe sometimes unnaturally or inexcusably get the blame when a team does poorly, and it's not always their fault. But I'm starting to think that the narrative needs to be Aaron Rodgers. These are his stats, and they're not they're not awful. Over 200 yards, 250 yards most games, a decent completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio is about even, which you'd like to see something better. He's getting protected. If these last 2 losses on the road, he's been sacked once in each game. That I would argue that that's pretty darn good for him. He has nothing to complain about there. His rating's okay, but his QBR isn't anything to write home about. You want something more. And I'm not saying this is awful, right? This isn't Deshaun Watson numbers. We're not looking to replace this guy right now, but it makes me wonder if where are the locker room stats, right? Where are the things we don't see recorded stats, which I get is ironic, a catch-22, if you will, the culture. And people are going to talk about the culture, I think, as we move forward. What is Aaron Rodgers bringing to this team in terms of leadership, in terms of experience, in terms of personability? Because my guess is, or my view of the situation is, he kind of sits on a throne. He is Aaron Rodgers. He has the crown on, and it's kind of like, I'm gonna do some things, and you're just gonna have to figure it out, right? I don't know him. I don't know what kind of quarterback he is, but I don't know if he is a leader in the sense of humbling himself to the level of those around him and leading in that way, or not. And maybe that is unfair for me to project onto him, and maybe I'm misreading it. I'm fully aware of that, but my suggestion would be that he needs to maybe humble himself and say, guys, I have the experience. Let's help each other in this moment, because we don't have it. All right. These are their remaining games. Houston, Arizona, Indy, all teams that could beat them. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, and the Miami again. It's not looking good, bruv, as they say. That's tough. Not an easy schedule. There are some winnable games, certainly, but this is not a schedule you think, oh, they're going to win 75% of these, especially not the way they've been playing. So a primetime game on Thanksgiving, that's probably worst case, a short week. They do stay home, but a short week against a solid team, primetime conversation dictates primetime games. So we'll see what happens. My consensus opinion, my analysis right now is salvaging the reputation is more important than salvaging the season. I think the season's over. I think the Jets are done. But there are players on this team who have a decade left in the NFL. And not that this season is going to dictate their career, but I think there are guys on this team, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and some defensive players who have longevity still. And it's unfortunate that, and I'll go to the last slide here, Rodgers, and not only Rodgers, Davante Adams at this point owes it to the youth of this team. It's unfortunate that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams can have a mediocre to subpar, underwhelming season on the Jets. They'll retire in a few years, and they'll still be Hall of Famers. They'll still be guys with a legacy, and this season won't matter. But you take guys like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, some of these other guys on the defense, and they don't get to just ride off into the sunset and say, well, I did the thing. I had a tremendous NFL career. It didn't end great, but it doesn't end great for a lot of guys, and that's okay. And again, that could be an over-exaggeration. That could be, me putting too much emphasis on this, but I do think contracts and potential of players revolve a lot around performance, and unfortunately, I don't see the Jets' performance shaping up anytime soon. So a little bit disappointing. I would hope that Rodgers would do the right thing. If you want to apply morals to a code of ethics to the NFL, which I get is not something that is probably realistic, there is a bit of, just this understood respect that I think Rodgers and Adams should be bestowing onto these young guys. And trying to say, I've had my time, look at people who led me in times like this. How can I lead these guys? That's what I want to see. So forget the season, right? Forget the season right now. Let's work on reputation, and let's work on the future for some of these guys who have a lot of potential, a lot of skill. So the Jets are done. That's what it is. We'll see how they can finish out the year, but I don't think it's looking great, especially with this late bye week. Not good. All right, guys. Appreciate you coming by. We'll talk at you soon. Shout out to Jameis Winston. I mean, what? There we go. I'm going to close the video now. I accidentally hit the wrong button. Let me do that again. Shout out to Jameis Winston. What?